Right. It's a bit odd. Hi.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We are coming to you live from the Nelson Mandela Foundation right here on Salaamedia with none other than Francesca Albanese, internationally acclaimed legal scholar and also UN Special Rapporteur for the Palestinian territories, who is in South Africa, the guest of the Nelson Mandela Foundation. And clearly for me, it's an absolute honor and a privilege to be sitting on the other side of this great personality. Francesca, welcome, and I'm sure you look forward to your trip to South Africa, and I'm sure you are having a good time until now.
Shukran wa assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much. It's an honor and a privilege for me as well to be here in South Africa as a guest of the Nelson Mandela Foundation. I've been one day here and I already feel overwhelmed with inspiration and a sense of possibility that keeps my morale high despite the horror that I keep on being a storyteller of, because the Palestinians, as we speak, continue to die despite the discussions around peace and continue to be ethnically cleansed. So our eyes must remain on Palestine.
Well, you are here in South Africa to deliver some very important messages, and the one I'd like to focus on is the keynote address talking about global change. And when one talks about global change, the 2 years of this genocide in Gaza is a perfect example of the transformation that actually needed right across the entire world and on different levels, whether we're looking at it politically, we're looking at it from a humanitarian perspective, economically, right across the entire world. And we've seen Gaza, which is actually starting to change and to determine what a new world order should look like.
Yeah, in fact, I think that what's happening in Gaza, but also what's happening to Palestine, because the West Bank is eating up every day an inch more, a dунum of land more, a house more by violent settlers and their army. What's happening is a revealer, as a revealer of the world we live in. I personally believe that the world is always in continuous transformation, but we need to understand the juncture, the historical juncture we are at, because this is not the first genocide that happens under our eyes. In my lifetime, there have been at least other 2 genocides that should have been prevented and have not. The genocide in Rwanda and the genocide in former Yugoslavia, in Bosnia and Herzegovina. But this is the first genocide that has awakened a global consciousness, a global conscience, and we have a sense of responsibility to act. This is what the current moment tells me. The challenges and the odds against the movement, the global solidarity movement, are immense, and still they are not good enough a reason not to stand in solidarity with Palestine, where solidarity means action, means change. So where change, the word change comes to mind, is what we have to do is change. Whatever we have done, which is good, if we have been in the solidarity movement as scholars, as intellectuals, as activists, or anything, we need to do more. And if we have been inactive, we need to ask ourselves why, and we need to change that. And if we are into businesses, probably we need to see if we are investing into the machinery that has allowed Israel to fester through years and decades of illegal occupation that now has transformed into a genocide.
Yes, and I think what's also important to understand is we know there has been a huge change from a humanitarian perspective, and particularly when one looks at solidarity on the ground right across the entire world. But when we look at those that have been actively involved in the genocide, the Israeli government, the governments that have actually supported the genocide, and I know you feel very, very strongly about those who have made this genocide a lucrative business and those that have actually profiteered from this genocide.
Definitely, I mean, I feel horrified at being the witness, the fact checker of what happens to Palestine. Among the independent mechanisms that the United Nations have mandated to look at what happens in the occupied Palestinian territory, there is also the Commission of Inquiry, who's led by an illustrious South African judge, Navi Pillay, and our work points to a system of complicity. Israel would have not been able to maintain decades of exploitation, dispossession, forced displacement, and other annexed crimes without the complicity of states and the profits and the action of the private sector. And the private sector is not just businesses, it's banks, pension funds, even universities and charities. This is what my last report documented, and this is why I say if Palestine was a crime scene, it would have the fingerprints of all of us. And yes, this is bad, but it's also good because it gives us, I mean, this understanding gives us a sense that all of us have the power to make a change.
Yes. Francesca, after these 2 years of a most brutal genocide, where we are and where we stand today, and looking at the latest developments, the ceasefire, we know US President Donald Trump is obviously taking a lot of credit for brokering the ceasefire, but you've made mention of those words, ceasefire, and you've actually broken it down into two. You say, you cease and I fire. And I think, that is so critical for us to understand in terms of the leadership we have around the world, number one, but also at the same time to look at this Israeli state that has gone rogue. Benjamin Netanyahu and his government have still not been held accountable. Justice has still not been served. And it also comes at a time when the killing still continues. Yeah. And all these agreements or ceasefire deals until now have meant absolutely nothing, while the Palestinians still continue to suffer the consequences.
I think that this is exactly the confirmation of what I was saying before. This system would have not reached the point, the oppression of the Palestinians would have not reached that point had it been for a system supporting it, enabling it. And I do not see the genocide as an exception, as an aberration. It's just the culmination, not an aberration in itself, it's the culmination, a culmination of violence against a people whose only crime is to belong to that land. And clearly the Palestinians are demonstrating, as many other indigenous people, victims of settler colonialism, that the land is so important to them because this is not just a place where they live, it's who they are. And their very presence is an insult, is an affront to the regime who wants to ethnically cleanse that land. But there is another point. The system that we have been creating and strengthening and making more, let's say, democratic over time, because clearly the UN system was created at the time, most of the countries, including this one, were still under the yoke of colonialism. But we are no longer there. Now there are not 53 countries, now there are 193 members of the United Nations. Why the system, democratic as is not strong enough to face this reality, to prevent, to stop, to punish a genocide and incitement to genocide. And this is key. We need another multilateralism, a different multilateralism, which is for the many, not for the few, and where there is no veto power and there is no one state that dominates. It's true that President Trump deserves the credit of the ceasefire. But where is this ceasefire? I mean, dozens of Palestinians have been killed in Gaza. Hundreds of targets have been hit. I don't even know what is target. But the thing is that this is the reason why it doesn't stop. It's because it's not a war. And the solution is not in a ceasefire. It's a national law. And it means end of the genocide today, end of the occupation tomorrow, and we are already late because the General Assembly had given until 18th of September to Israel to stop and then end apartheid. As it happened here, it is to happen there as well, addressing the root causes that have allowed settler colonialism to root, which are racism and discrimination.
Yes, just looking at it from an accountability and a justice perspective, you know, will Israel ever be held accountable? Will justice ever be served after we've seen such brutality that has been unleashed over the last 2 years?
Look, just this morning, I was looking at the letters that Nelson Mandela wrote to his daughter in the late 90s. In the late 60s. I think it was 1966. And he was saying at a certain point, I don't know when it will happen, but I will be free. And it reminded me of something that I heard a few days ago by someone else who had been part of the liberation struggle. And we don't know when, but yes, we will have justice, because no oppression lasts forever. And so yes, the Palestinians will be free, together with the Jewish people and the Christian people and the secular people who call that place home. But for it to happen, it's the when that matters, because the when it will happen will also determine how many people will lose their life or will be tormented and massacred in the process.
Yes, and just finally, just looking at the role of media, and I know you've made a lot of observations, you've been critical of mainstream media, for example, people like us at independent media who have been obviously covering this genocide extensively for the last 2 years. But your message to the media, because to a large extent, I think, you know, they have also had a huge role in terms of the narratives as far as this genocide is concerned and what has played out.
Yeah, look, I think that what has happened in the past 2 years has been such a shock for people in the Western world, the part of the world I come from, and this is why there has been resistance from students and then from workers and more ordinary citizens, but they've been repressed. This is the thing. We have seen not just a genocide happening, a genocide that has been hidden, whose reasons have been obscured, muted, manipulated. We have heard political leaders amplified by state and corporate media referring to Israel's self-defense, reproducing colonial tropes of the barbarians, of the savages, which continues today because they are still the Palestinians are still infantilized and they have to be put under tutelage. They are not even now, after a genocide, recognized as capable to lead themselves into the future. So, of course, the media has played a critical role, but this notwithstanding, people in the part of the world I come from have realized that those who were given as the pillars of our democracies, like freedom of expression and freedom of association, freedom to protest, has come into question, has been crushed in order to protect Israel. And this is the thing, the moment of realization. The other aspect that Israel-Palestine is been, and the fate of Palestine today is a revealer of, is that there is an Israelization and Palestinianization of the relationship between the individual and the state. So our freedoms are less than freedoms when it comes to Palestine, when it comes to opposing a genocide, apartheid, and a perpetual occupation. And this tells us that we are not free until Palestine is free, until everyone is free.
Well, Francesca, I wish we had a lot more time, but I know time is of the essence for you as well. But I must say once again, it's been an absolute honor. It's been a privilege. You've been one of the strongest Western voices, and this is what Palestine needs, is strong voices to speak on their behalf. And once again, I want to take this opportunity on behalf of Salaamedia as well to thank you, for your presence and obviously giving some of your time to us while you are here in South Africa.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. And stay strong
Thank
and
you.
active.
All the best.
Thank you.
Well, Francesca Albanese with us right here at the Nelson Mandela Foundation, and this is the second day of her visit to South Africa. Once again, from ourselves, an absolute pleasure to connect with our listeners, our viewers on Salaamedia. Until we meet again, all the best.